Racist Karen insults Michelle Obama. What happens when she tell her who are she? Patricia Williams stepped out of her gleaming white Range Rover at the Kennedy Center, her Hermes bag clutched tightly as she surveyed the gathering crowd. The annual Children's Defense Fund Gala was Washington, D.C.'s most exclusive charity event, and Patricia had paid $15,000 for her table, not out of generosity, but because being seen here mattered more than the cause itself. She adjusted her diamond necklace and walked past the valet with the kind of dismissive nod that screamed old money entitlement. Patricia had inherited her wealth from her grandfather's real estate empire, and at 52, she wielded her privilege like a weapon against anyone she deemed beneath her station. The red carpet stretched before her, lined with photographers and reporters capturing every arrival. Patricia smiled for the cameras, her bleached teeth gleaming under the lights, completely unaware that in just 3 hours, this same smile would be plastered across social media for all the wrong reasons. She had no idea that tonight would be the night her entire world came crashing down, all because she couldn't keep her mouth shut when it mattered most. Set up the Kennedy Center's grand foyer buzzed with Washington's elite. Senators mingled with tech billionaires, Supreme Court justices chatted with Hollywood producers, and media moguls shared champagne with foreign ambassadors. This wasn't just any charity event. This was where power brokers came to see and be seen. Patricia Williams had been attending events like this for decades, ever since marrying Richard Williams, a prominent Republican lobbyist whose connections opened doors that even her family money couldn't reach. Together, they had built a reputation as conservative power players, hosting fundraisers at their Georgetown mansion and rubbing shoulders with politicians who shaped national policy. But beneath the polished exterior, Patricia harbored the kind of deep-seated prejudices that she usually kept hidden behind closed doors, the kind that only surfaced when she felt safe among what she assumed were like-minded people. Tonight's keynote speaker was Michelle Obama, who had agreed to address the crowd about childhood education and poverty. The former First Lady's appearance had caused ticket sales to skyrocket, with tables selling for unprecedented amounts as donors clamored for the chance to hear her speak. Patricia had not been pleased when the speaker was announced. She had made her feelings clear to her husband over dinner weeks earlier, using words that would have shocked even her conservative friends. Richard had warned her to keep those opinions to herself tonight, reminding her that they were in mixed company and that cameras would be everywhere. Patricia had agreed, but alcohol had a way of loosening her tongue, and she had already finished 2 glasses of champagne before the cocktail hour had properly begun. She positioned herself near the bar, where she could observe the crowd and make her usual cutting comments to whoever would listen. Her circle of acquaintances included several other wealthy wives who shared her political views, and Patricia felt emboldened by their presence. The first sign of trouble came when Patricia spotted Michelle Obama's security detail conducting their sweep of the venue. The sight of the Secret Service agents reminded her exactly who would be commanding everyone's attention tonight, and her mood darkened considerably. She ordered another champagne and began making pointed comments about certain people, getting more attention than they deserved. Her friends laughed nervously, recognizing the dangerous territory Patricia was entering but unsure how to redirect the conversation. The venue continued to fill with guests, and Patricia noticed several prominent African American leaders in attendance. Congresspeople, business leaders, and celebrities who had come to support both the cause and Michelle Obama. This only fueled her growing resentment and sense that she was somehow being pushed aside in favor of people she didn't consider worthy of the spotlight. As the cocktail hour progressed, Patricia's commentary grew more pointed and less subtle. She was building towards something explosive, and everyone around her could sense it. The moment arrived at 7:30 p.m. when Michelle Obama made her entrance. The entire room seemed to shift toward her, conversations pausing as heads turned to catch a glimpse of the former First Lady. She moved through the crowd with the kind of grace that can't be taught, stopping to greet supporters and donors with genuine warmth. Patricia watched from across the room, her jaw clenched as she observed the attention being lavished on someone she considered undeserving. The champagne had done its work, and the filter between her thoughts and her mouth had completely dissolved. Michelle Obama was making her way through the crowd, accompanied by the event organizers, when her path brought her within 20 feet of where Patricia stood with her group of friends. The former First Lady was engaged in conversation with Senator Elizabeth Warren and tech entrepreneur Mark Benioff, discussing the evening's fundraising goals. This was the moment Patricia had been building toward all evening. Surrounded by what she assumed was a friendly audience, emboldened by alcohol and years of unchecked privilege, she decided to make her move. Well, Patricia announced loudly enough for several nearby tables to hear. Look who they've rolled out to beg for money tonight. The conversations around her began to die down as people turned to see who was speaking. Michelle Obama, still engaged with Senator Warren, hadn't yet noticed the commotion, but Patricia was just getting started. I said, look. Patricia's voice rose, her words now carrying across a significant portion of the room. They've got that woman here pretending she's somebody important. Now Michelle Obama did notice, along with nearly 100 other guests who had turned to stare at Patricia. The former First Lady maintained her composure, but her security detail immediately stepped closer, assessing the situation. Patricia, drunk on alcohol and her own sense of superiority, took the attention as encouragement to continue. She stepped forward, raising her voice even more. 8 years of listening to her lecture us about vegetables and exercise. Patricia shouted, her words slurring slightly, and now we're supposed to throw money at her pet projects. I don't think so. The room had gone completely silent now. Phones were being discreetly raised to record what was quickly becoming a public spectacle. Patricia's husband Richard appeared at her elbow, trying to guide her away, but she shrugged him off. Michelle Obama, displaying the kind of class that had made her beloved worldwide, simply looked at Patricia with calm dignity and said, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. But Patricia wasn't finished. The former First Lady's grace only seemed to enrage her further, as if Michelle's refusal to engage was somehow an insult in itself. Don't you turn your back on me, Patricia snarled, taking several steps forward despite her husband's increasingly desperate attempts to restrain her. I paid good money to be here, and I don't need some affirmative action success story telling me about charity. The words hung in the air like poison. Every person in the vicinity froze, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Michelle Obama stopped walking and turned back toward Patricia, her expression still controlled, but now unmistakably steel beneath the surface. But it was the other guests who reacted first. Senator Warren stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. Mark Benioff pulled out his phone and began recording. Oprah Winfrey, who had been sitting at a nearby table, stood up and began walking toward the confrontation. Patricia, realizing she now had the attention of the entire room, decided to double down on her attack. That's right, she continued, her voice echoing in the silent ballroom. We all know she only got where she did because of quotas and guilt. Some of us actually earned our place here. It was at that moment that Patricia Williams sealed her fate. Because what she didn't know, what her alcohol, clouded judgment had prevented her from noticing, was exactly who was witnessing her racist tirade. Standing directly behind her, having arrived late and approached quietly, was Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. At the table, immediately to her right, sat the CEO of every major streaming service, along with the heads of 3 different news networks. Senator Cory Booker had been recording her entire meltdown on his phone. And perhaps most damaging of all, the wife of her husband's biggest client, a Fortune 500 company that prided itself on diversity and inclusion, had captured every word on video. Patricia Williams had just committed social suicide in front of the most powerful audience imaginable, and she didn't even realize it yet. The immediate aftermath of Patricia's racist outburst unfolded like a slow-motion car crash. Michelle Obama, maintaining her characteristic grace under pressure, simply nodded to her security detail and continued toward her table, refusing to dignify the attack with further response. But the damage was already spreading through the room like wildfire. Within minutes, multiple videos of Patricia's tirade were uploading to social media platforms. Senator Cory Booker's Instagram story, which showed Patricia screaming about affirmative action, went viral within the first hour, accumulating over 2 million views before midnight. Oprah's Twitter post, which simply said some people show you exactly who they are, believe them, along with a video clip, was retweeted 150,000 times in the first 2 hours, but the most devastating footage came from an unexpected source. Margaret Chen, wife of David Chen, who ran the private equity firm that managed Patricia's family trust, had been sitting at a table directly adjacent to the confrontation. Margaret, a documentary filmmaker, had professional grade equipment with her and had captured everything in crystal clear 4K video with perfect audio. Margaret's footage didn't just show Patricia's racist rant, it captured the entire context. Viewers could see Michelle Obama's dignified arrival, the respectful attention she received from other guests, and then Patricia's completely unprovoked attack. The video made it impossible for anyone to claim Patricia had been defending herself or responding to some provocation. Richard Williams knew his wife had crossed a line, but he had no idea how catastrophic the fallout would be. He spent the first hour after the incident trying to do damage control, approaching people he knew and attempting to explain away Patricia's behavior as the result of too much champagne and stress from a recent family situation. Nobody was buying it. Too many people had heard Patricia make similar comments in smaller settings over the years. This wasn't an aberration. It was Patricia Williams showing her true colors on the biggest possible stage. By 11 p.m., #racist Patricia was trending nationwide on Twitter. By midnight, it had gone global. The story was being covered by every major news outlet, with CNN, MSNBC, and even Fox News running segments about the incident. The video had been viewed over 10 million times across various platforms. Patricia's first indication of how bad things had gotten came when she woke up the next morning to find her phone had died from the constant stream of notifications. When she plugged it in and turned it on, she was immediately bombarded with thousands of missed calls, text messages, and social media notifications. Her voicemail was full of messages from reporters requesting comment, but scattered among them were much more ominous calls. The first was from David Chen's office requesting an urgent meeting about her family's investment portfolio. The second was from the board of the private country club where she served as social events coordinator, asking for her immediate resignation. But it was the third message that made her blood run cold. It was from Richard's biggest client, the CEO of Morrison Industries, a Fortune 500 manufacturing company that did over $3 billion in government contracts annually. The message was brief and professional. In light of recent events, Morrison Industries will be terminating our relationship with Williams Strategic Consulting, effective immediately. Patricia stumbled downstairs to find Richard on the phone, his face pale and his voice shaking as he tried to salvage what was left of their professional relationships. When he saw her, he hung up and turned toward her with an expression she had never seen before. A mixture of rage, despair, and disgust. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he asked, his voice barely controlled. "Do you understand that you've destroyed everything we've built? Patricia was about to respond when her phone rang again. This time it was her sister, calling from California, her voice frantic. "Patricia, there are reporters outside my house asking about you. My neighbors are calling me. What the hell happened?" That's when Patricia realized the true scope of what she had done. This wasn't just a Washington, D.C. scandal. This was national news. Her face was being broadcast into millions of homes across America, along with her racist rant against one of the most beloved figures in American public life. The phone calls kept coming throughout the morning. The Georgetown Country Club, where Patricia had been a member for 20 years, was reviewing her membership status. The charity boards she sat on were asking her to step down. The private school where she volunteered was suggesting she take a temporary leave of absence. But the most devastating blow came when Margaret Chen personally called to inform her that the Chen family would be withdrawing their investments from Patricia's family trust, investments that represented nearly 40% of her personal wealth. "I want you to know," Margaret said, her voice ice cold, "that my husband and I find your behavior completely reprehensible. We will not be associated with someone who would attack Michelle Obama or anyone else with such vile racism." By noon, Patricia Williams had lost her country club membership, her positions on 3 charity boards, her husband's biggest client, and nearly half of her personal wealth. And the hits kept coming. The story wasn't dying down, it was getting bigger. Late-night talk show hosts were making jokes about her. News anchors were using her behavior as a teaching moment about racism and privilege. Social media influencers were creating content about the incident, each post reaching millions of people who were just learning about Patricia Williams for the first time. Richard's lobbying firm, which had taken decades to build, was hemorrhaging clients. Companies were afraid to be associated with him, worried that his wife's racism would reflect poorly on their brands. Political allies were distancing themselves, unwilling to risk their own reputations by standing beside him. Patricia had become radioactive, and everyone in her orbit was getting burned. 3 weeks after the incident, Patricia Williams sat in the living room of her Georgetown mansion, a mansion that was now on the market because they could no longer afford the mortgage payments. The house that had once hosted senators and cabinet members now sat empty, except for Patricia and the moving boxes that surrounded her. The final blow had come when Michelle Obama herself had responded to the incident during an interview with Anderson Cooper. The former First Lady hadn't mentioned Patricia by name, but her words were devastating in their calm precision. "I've spent my entire adult life facing people who question my right to exist in certain spaces," Michelle had said, looking directly into the camera. What happened at that charity event, which was supposed to be about helping children, shows that we still have so much work to do. But I want to be clear, I will not be diminished by someone else's hate. I will not be silenced by someone else's ignorance. And I will continue to show up, continue to speak out, and continue to fight for the values that make this country great. The interview had been viewed 50 million times. Patricia's name was never mentioned, but everyone knew who Michelle Obama was talking about. The social and financial consequences had been swift and complete. Richard's lobbying firm had folded entirely, with their remaining clients jumping to competitors rather than risk association with the Williams name. The couple's assets had been liquidated to pay debts and legal fees from the various lawsuits that had been filed against them. Patricia's fall from grace had been so complete that even her longtime friends had abandoned her. The women who had once gathered around her at charity events now crossed the street to avoid her. The social media accounts that had once shown her glamorous lifestyle now sat dormant, too toxic to maintain. But perhaps the most profound consequence was the impact on their adult children. Their daughter, a marketing executive in New York, had been passed over for a promotion after her company discovered the family connection. Their son, a law student at Georgetown, had faced calls for his expulsion from classmates who felt he represented the same values as his mother. The family that had once been Washington royalty was now in complete exile. As Patricia sat among the boxes, she tried to understand how everything had unraveled so quickly. She had always felt protected by her wealth and social connections. She had assumed that her status would shield her from consequences, that the powerful people in her orbit would rally around her when it mattered. Instead, she had learned that there were some lines you simply couldn't cross. Not in modern America, and certainly not when crossing them meant attacking someone as beloved and respected as Michelle Obama. The irony wasn't lost on her that she had always prided herself on being untouchable, only to discover that she was just as vulnerable as anyone else when she chose to reveal her true character in public. Michelle Obama, meanwhile, had emerged from the incident with her reputation enhanced. Her graceful response to Patricia's attack had only reinforced why she was so beloved. Donations to the Children's Defense Fund had actually increased in the weeks following the gala, with many donors specifically citing their admiration for how the former First Lady had handled the situation. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. One woman had chosen hate and had lost everything, while the other had chosen dignity and had gained even more respect. Patricia Williams had gotten exactly what she deserved: the complete destruction of the privileged life she had used as a platform for spreading racism and hate. And Michelle Obama had once again proven why she remained one of the most admired women in America. In the end, Patricia learned that in the age of social media and instant accountability, there was no safe space for public racism, not even among the wealthy elite of Washington, D.C. Her 15 minutes of infamy had cost her everything she had spent a lifetime building. The moving truck arrived that afternoon to take the last of their belongings to a modest apartment in Virginia. As Patricia watched her former life being loaded into cardboard boxes, she finally understood the true price of her prejudice. Some mistakes you can recover from, but when you choose to attack someone like Michelle Obama with racist venom in front of the most powerful people in America, you learn that some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. Patricia Williams had thought she was untouchable. She had learned, too late, that nobody is above the consequences of their choices, especially when those choices reveal the ugliness that lies beneath a polished surface. Her story became a cautionary tale, shared millions of times across social media, as a reminder that privilege without character is a house built on sand, and that in the modern world, your true nature will eventually be exposed for everyone to see. If you've ever witnessed someone face instant consequences for their racism, share your story in the comments below. And if you believe that disrespecting Michelle Obama should have real consequences, hit that share button to spread this story to everyone who needs to see it.